What is up, gamers? Standard just released a brand new grade 3 order called Dragresonance. Essentially, whenever your Vanguard restands for the first time each turn, you get a front trigger out of it, which is really good. Front triggers are usually very powerful whenever they are used in most cases. I have been trying to make Kagero work for the past like 3-ish months now, and it hasn't really gone too well, but this card actually makes Overlord not turbo shit anymore. So this list is a very early iteration of it, and there can probably be better ways to optimize it, but this is like a good baseline to start. Starting off, V starter, getting quick shield, pretty good. Drawing a card, pretty good. You can play Conro, but this deck doesn't really need the search. You could build towards it and put in more tech cards like Honolly. Having a V starter just helps keep our hand a little bit healthier than a Conro would. Next, 3 of the new order. So whenever you play it, you give your Vanguard the skill that once per turn, whenever it restands, you give your front row plus 10k. This is what this deck is built around, is trying to use this every single turn. And most of the time, games should last 4 turns for you. At most 5, depending on you're in a slower matchup. And you can afford to like play a slower game throughout. But yeah, so this is really powerful in here because one of the biggest weaknesses Overlord has had recently was every other clan has been getting support through all the clan collections and premium collections, while Kagero has been one of the worst in almost all of those sets. So every clan has gotten better, and then plus with the introduction of grade 3 heals and then people discovering Rollock, the grade 3 turn became less impactful, and Kagero just as a clan does not have really any other options. And then with history collection, basically every single clan got buffed or at least side graded to where those cards like make interesting deck building decisions, while Kagero got Blade Master, which doesn't really add deck building decision to Kagero. All it does is give you 2 force markers and retire 2 rear guards. It's not great. So Kagero has just like really fallen behind over time. This card helps Overlord have a more impressive grade 3 turn again, because now if we play this on VDX turn, then we're essentially just getting an extra 30k power to our front row. And now the deck will actually hit numbers outside of just Vanguard Circle and using something like Calamity Tower Wyvern. This is just way better than Calamity Tower Wyvern could wish it could be. So yeah, the whole deck is based around this and trying to find it and be able to use it each turn once we hit grade 3. For our VX lineup, we're doing a 2-2 split of V and the Legion. Essentially, the V1 can Soul Blast and become a copy of any other Overlord in your deck other than a card named Dragonic Overlord VX. When combined with the end, it will essentially just be able to swing 3 times on grade 3 turn. In this particular build, you want to go Force 2 all the time because the order will give you the power you need. And sometimes you may just want to go like 2 swings instead of the full 3, because if you go 2 swings, then you actually just generate card advantage since you're not discarding anything for the Counterblast Soul Blast the end skill, and you can build up a bit of a bigger hand, so whenever you go into the Legion turn, you have a easier time building a board. And you could also slow down the game if you get like aggroed early on, then you can do that and try to rebuild some resources in order to hit back harder on the following turn. But for the most part, you want to go 3 swings with the X, and then the Legion is just how you win. So whenever you perform Legion, you perform it with Dragonic Overlord the end, and then once you fully do it, you get to add another copy of one of your Dragonic Overlords from your deck to your hand, so it can be another DX or another the end. A lot of the time, you'll grab the other Legion from your deck, so then on the following turn, you can re-ride and Legion again. And then also, it has the effect that whenever its attack doesn't hit, you can Counterblast 1, discard another copy of the X, and retire 2 of your opponent's rear guards. So to fully understand like why these are good, we also have to go over Dragonic Overlord the end. So I'm currently playing 3. I'm not playing any other Overlords. This is the primary one we are using because Rebirth does not work well with the order since we have to lock our board. But yeah, so the end has the skills that the end of the battle it attacked, you can activate 1 or more of the effects below. So if you have 4 or less cards, you Counterblast 1, Soul Blast 1, and then he restands with -1 drive. And then if your soul has an Overlord card at the end of the battle he attacks, then you can discard 3, restand him, and he gets plus 10k power and -1 drive. So in tandem with the VVX, you will essentially just search this out, and then this will swing for 13, 23, 23. And then he can't go below 1 drive if your opponent's grade 3 or higher. If you go first, then it'll go 2 drive, 1 drive, 0 drive. But if you go second, it'll go 2 drive, 1 drive, 1 drive. In tandem with the order, then this will be swinging for 13. You do the discard 3 effect to restand with plus 10k power. And then this will also give it another 10k power. So then this will be 33 on the next 2 swings. And then VDX also will count your hand as 0 cards for all of your card effects. V the end's first effect, where you need to have 4 less cards in hand, you can do that without needing to be at 4 less cards in hand. So you can commit less cards to the board in order to get that restand, and then you'll generate advantage out of that. And then with the Legion, because the X is the one performing the drive checks, whenever the end uses its skill to restand, the end is the one losing the drive checks, not the X. So the X will swing with twin drive and then restand and then swing with twin drive again, restand, swing with twin drive again. So you get 6 drive checks for discarding 3 cards. And then in combination with the order, this is where the deck can gets really powerful now, because the order says give all of your front row units plus 10k power. So it's just a blanket front row buff. And while you're in Legion, both of them will get plus 10k. So whenever they swing, this attack is essentially plus 20k from this order. So on the first swing, it'll be 24 by itself. And if you played the order, then you'll do the discard 3 to restand with plus 10k. So with that plus 10k from the end skill, it'll be 34. And then with the order, adding another 20k, it'll be 54, which is why you go force 2 in this deck. Because now this is going 24, 54, 54, which is really powerful. So yeah, that is the reasoning for the order. And that is our grade 3 lineup. We're running 10 grade 3s. And yeah, this order just makes these turns a lot scarier now. So how do we build the rest of the deck now? There's a few ways you could go about it. For how I'm doing it, I'm going for a variation where we try to deck thin as much as possible. So then we just have essentially critical triggers in our deck, because now we can hit numbers and our deck is less reliant on needing to hit a critical trigger in order to have pressure. But I want to be able to have crits during the Legion turn, because now we have numbers down. We just need them to do more damage at this point. And because of our ordering of riding, we're riding V the X on first grade 3 turn, and then we're riding the Legion on second grade 3 turn. So we're only going to be able to get 1 force marker out of it. So if we have more crits, then we can essentially have more force 2 markers in the process. So first is for Ignimo Dragon. So when placed on Vanguard or Rearguard, you check top 7 for a copy of the X and then add it to hand. And then while on Rearguard, whenever your Vanguard attacks, if you have 4 less cards in hand, Ignimo will get plus 5k power for that. And that second effect is not once per turn. So essentially, whenever we're attacking 3 times with our Vanguard, this will be base 25k. Combined with the order, this will be base 35k. So this is just essentially a 3-way to try to help consistently find your DX from your deck. And then there's also just a big beater in the process, which really helps with the deck trying to hit numbers. And then I thought Igni Road is pretty good, and I want more Igni Roads. So we're also playing 3 of the D-Series Burning Horn Dragon. So when placed on Rearguard, you cast 1, check top 7, add an Overlord from among them to hand, and then shuffle the rest. If you did not add anything, then you countercharge. And then whenever your Overlord Vanguard attacks, he gets plus 5k power until end of turn. So again, like Igni Road Dragon, he will be able to get to 25k and then 35k with the order. And then combined with any booster, these will be hitting over 40k during those turns, for essentially doing what we're already doing. So now our Rearguards will have a lot more pressure with them and just be a lot harder to guard compared to normal, because now against most matchups, they will be at least 35k shield to block. And then also it makes the grade 3 turn a lot more threatening, because for the same reason as this, now we'll have a 35k rearguard in the process. So now the defensive capabilities of some decks are a lot weaker into this. And I basically want to try to guarantee damage on turn 3, so now turn 4 has a lot easier of a time trying to finish out the game. So being able to call 1 or 2 of these on turn 3 is really impactful on trying to end games very quickly. And then the last grade 2 is a bit weird. It's 4 of the Ride Fixer. So it has the Ride Fixer effect of at the beginning of your ride phase, if you are a grade 1 or less Vanguard, then you can reveal and discard this, check top 5, add any grade 2 or lower card from among them into your hand. But his first effect is whenever he attacks a Vanguard while boosted, then you can Soul Blast 1 and choose a column and retire everything in it. By attack is really solid because it can get through resist on some Rearguards and actually just like blow stuff up. But you mainly use it for the second effect to ride fix, because we want to be able to consistently find our DXs whenever we need them, and having a ride fixer be able to basically be extra copies of our searchers is really big. It also deck thins a normal unit out of the deck. So all of our grade 2 lineup all deck thins a normal unit out of the deck. So now we are naturally just like hitting more triggers because of that. And whenever we end up performing Legion, it'll just make it super easy to hit what we need. So yeah, buy attack is good. You don't super care about the retire effect, but it can come up in some cases. For the most part, you mainly care about the ride fix effect and just discarding them as much as possible to thin out your deck more. Moving on to grade 1s, for Hishat. So win place, you Card Blast 1, Soul Blast 1, draw a card, and retire an opponent's back row. And then whenever he's ridden upon, you check top 5 and add a grade 3 to your hand and shuffle the rest back in. Hishat, again, has the ability to search for grade 3s. This can directly search for the order because it's any grade 3 card, while all of our grade 2s so far haven't been able to search for an order. So this is one of our ways we can more guarantee try to see the order. And then in tandem with riding Igni Road, you essentially refund your ride costs from these if you hit the searchers off them. So it just helps keep your hand healthy. Even though you're only adding grade 3s off of them, a lot of the time you will just like mulligan all your grade 3s because you have so many ways to search them that you're gonna be able to find what you need no matter what anyway. So this will just like help consistently just get all the pieces you need for the rest of the game. Most of the time, I try to find VDX as fast as possible, and then I try to find the Legion right after, and then somewhere in there, I try to find the order as well, if possible. So yeah, Hishat is just really good in that regard, and then sometimes having the ability to call it and then draw a new card can help build a board during your Legion turn, because you need to have one card in your hand to start with at least for the most effective way to push for damage on the Legion turn, because then you can go for the discard 3 to restand first and that'll give you the plus 10k for the next 2 battles. But if you do it the other way, where you do the Card Blast Soul Blast effect first, you don't get power from that effect, and then you'll get power from the discard 3 effect. So then you'll only have that plus 10k for 1 battle. So Hishat just helping rebuild a board is really important. Next up, 3 Lava Flow. So during your turn, if you have more rear guards than your opponent, he has plus 5k power. And then win place, this is normal grade 3 searcher effect. So you check top 5, add any grade 3 to your hand, shuffle the rest back in, and then you discard a card. So Lava Flow, again, is another card that can search directly the order. It is also a 13k. In tandem behind the X, if it's your first swing, it'll be 26. And then the X will restand with 33 because of the order. On the Legion turn, this will be a 37k swing. And then it will restand to be 54 if you have the order in play. But importantly enough, also, when behind one of your 35k beater rear guards, then it turns them into 48. So now it just demands a lot more shield and is a lot more awkward to guard for the opponent. You can also play very aggressively with Lava Flow Dragon. So if the opponent like tries to be aggressive with you, you can have your Vanguard be buy attack and then have Lava Flow behind it. And then this will swing, buy attack will blow up a column, and then most of the time you'll have more rear guards at that point. So then Lava Flow will have the plus 5k. So then this will become a 23k by itself. So yeah, Lava Flow is just really good consistency booster, and then really good number to help boost a lot of these decks. Next is 3 Lizard General Conro. When placed on rear guard, you reveal a grade 3 from your hand, and then you can add any Overlord from your deck to your hand. You discard a card afterwards, and then act, you can retire Conro, and your Vanguard gets the skill that on attack you countercharge 2. Not once per turn. Conro is just really insane at being consistent and is the best card to help with the consistency because it can directly search for an Overlord, and we get to pick which one we want. So if we have one of the X's in our hand, and then we have a Conro, let's say we have the Legion in Conro, then early game we can call Conro down, reveal the Legion, add V to our hand, and then we're completely set up for the rest of the game. And then also just like in later game scenarios where you're trying to deck thin as much as possible, then you call the Conro, reveal a grade 3, just discard one of the Overlords from your deck, and then you are 1 normal unit less in your deck to where you're able to hit more triggers. The second effect of being able to retire itself for a countercharge is just so free, man, because it's not once per turn. So whenever we're triple attacking with our VX, then if we have a bunch of counterblasted damage, we will just swing, countercharge 2 of them. Restand, swing, countercharge 2 of them. Restand, swing, countercharge 2 of them. We countercharge 6, essentially, is what Conro says. Now, the only like semi-issue with that effect is you minus. And minusing is a little bit brutal in this deck because we're already naturally minusing through the end skill. But outside of that, you basically only need to use that second effect once per game, and you're completely set up for the rest of the game. A lot of our Card Blast is going into the ends restand skill and our G guards. So if we're able to just refund those and then have a bunch of unflipped damage to use our G guards with, then that's really big for this deck. So yeah, Conro is just insanely good. Last 4 grade 1s, there is a Sanctitude and a D Perfect Guard. So Sanctitude, of course, just a free Perfect Guard, can get around guard restricts, just really impactful. And then the D Perfect Guard, if you don't understand Overlord, this could seem a little weird, but essentially on VDX, because our hand is considered to have 0 cards in our hand, this is essentially a free Perfect Guard every time while we're on VDX, which is really big. This just helps keep our hand healthy, so then we're able to play out a board and be able to have enough cards to discard in order to have a more optimal Legion turn. Could try to fit in 1 or 2 more of these, but it's a little bit hard to because there's a lot of important pieces we need in here to just keep our deck running. Because if you look, between all of these cards, the Conros will rip out normal units. Our VXs both rip out normal units. This rips out 2 because you Legion into 1 the end, and then you can add the end of the X back to your hand. So this can rip 2 normal units out of your deck. Lava Flow pulls out a normal unit. He Shout, when ridden on, pulls out a normal unit, but can also just draw a card as well. And then all of our grade 2s also pull out normal units. All the only cards in our deck that aren't triggers, that don't pull out normal units, are the 2 Perfect Guards, the 3 Orders, and the 3 The Ends. So we have 8 cards in here that does not pull out a card from the deck. The End is usually the card we are pulling out. Same with these. So between all of these and then plus Legion being able to send our triggers back into deck, we will just have such a compressed deck by turn 4 that naturally our Legion turn is going to be hitting more triggers, which that's really strong. So that's how this deck functions, is by being able to do that. So with the trigger lineup, we mainly want crits because we want to be able to have our high numbers have crit pressure on them. And since we can't get more force markers because of the ride ordering we're doing, we're essentially forced into playing more crits, which isn't a bad thing. If we hit a crit on our turn 3, then we're able to completely destroy the opponent, because then our first swing will technically be 23 with 3 crit if we give all the effects to Vanguard. And then it'll restand with the order boost and the end boost. So then it'll be 43-43. And the opponent is just forced to have multiple Perfect Guards, multiple Heal Guardians hit multiple damage triggers. And a lot of the time, at least one of those swings is going to be hitting, putting the opponent to at least 3 damage. So we are heavily needing crits to make these turns threatening. So with that, we're playing 4 of the Errata crit, 3 of the Solan Draw crit, and then 2 Stridefather crit. A lot of the time, you don't actually care about these effects. Most of the time. There are a few cases where like the Stridefather crit comes up. You mainly care about the damage draw effect from the Errata crit. And then a lot of the time, Tiklo won't activate, but it can to help make our hand size limits a bit better. Because then if we call this down on our Legion turn, a lot of the time how the Legion turn will function is you will end the turn at 6 cards in hand, because you need to start off, the max you can start off with during your battle phase is 3, and then you'll drive check 2 up to 5, and then you'll discard 3, go down to 2, then you'll drive check 2, go up to 4, and then you'll have 4 less, then you can restand again, and then get 2 more. So a lot of the time, you're going to be ending with 6 cards in hand, and if you have Tiklas, be able to soul in and draw, then you're gonna be able to have a higher power Vanguard, and then also be able to have more cards in your hand by the end of the turn. So then you can go up to 7 cards. If you have 1 in play, you can go up to, it's basically just like a temporary card removed from your hand in order to fulfill your low hand requirements, and then they'll be able to come back out. All these, pretty important. The primary reason you play them is because they're crits. And now the weird part is the overtrigger. We're playing the blue OT. Why not Drag Veda? So Drag Veda is very weird in here, mainly because the end, he has to choose an effect at the end of the battle. Even if you don't pay the cost, you can't use that effect for the rest of the turn still. So if we hit Drag Veda on any of our swings before our last swing, then we essentially still only have 3 attacks. The only time Drag Veda is impactful is on our last attack, because then we've already used both the restand skills, and then we'll have a 4th Vanguard attack. But because we're using the end every single grade 3 turn, it's a little bit awkward on trying to use it. And I find a lot of the time, whenever I try to use Drag Veda, I wish it was a crit. I'm still like deciding on which OT is better. Right now I'm trying blue OT, because it's an extra critical trigger, and then if we hit it early game, we're gonna be able to refund some costs and be able to get potentially even heals back into our hand. So then we can Denial Griffin or Defeat Flare again. The only like awkward part with blue OT is if it's during our Legion turn and we start the battle phase with 3 cards in hand, the add a card from drop effect is mandatory. So on our first or second swing, then this can like fuck up our hand count, and then it could make the turn a lot more awkward. Although this is essentially a 10th critical trigger as well, which can be really big. The other options are the red OT and the normal Clay Elemental OT. Honestly, this deck is one of the few that really likes the Clay Elemental OT, because then you can give 100 million twice to your Vanguard. So then your Vanguard becomes 200 million. It can still beat through defensive over triggers. But you can also just split the OTs to 2 different units, and then they're both swinging for 100 million. Red OT can be really good as well, because it ends up giving you a 6th attack in the deck, since we're attacking 3 times with our Vanguard and then our 2 front row. So having Red OT give an extra attack on a swing that is probably an extra crit as well can be really big, and it's essentially just like extra Vanguard swings at that point. So legit try any of the different Clay Elemental ones. They will all be better than Drag Veda in this deck. On God, no cap on a stack. For real, for real. But yeah, blue OT essentially just gives us 10 crit is what this is doing. And then a lot of the time, if you draw the OT and then have to guard with it and it goes in the drop, you can Legion it back in. So then while your deck is super compressed, you just Legion back in an over trigger in there. So you can still like be able to one-shot people super easily off that. And then also giving 100 million to your Vanguard is pretty broken in this deck, since we're going to be able to use it multiple times. And we have extra drive check pressure through that. Best of trigger lineup, 2 draw PGs. Mainly, I didn't want to use the Crit Sentinels, and I didn't have room in my main deck to use more of the D Sentinels. So this is essentially 6 cards that whenever we damage check it, we draw a card. And now we have like a different variety of Perfect Guards depending on the matchup. So if it's a matchup where they have like grade 0 Guard Restrict, then we can use the other 2 Perfect Guards. If they have grade 1 or higher Guard Restrict, then we can use this Perfect Guard on that swing. Again, draw PGs can sometimes fuck around with our Legion turn, but most of the time, we can play around that pretty well, and we're not Legioning back in the draw triggers. And also, you can rip them out of your Ride Fixer effect. So yeah, draw PGs have been super fine in here for the most part. And then lastly, for the heals, we're doing 3 of the grade 3 heal and then 1 of the grade 0 heal. So what's the difference between these? Mainly, the grade 3 heal is typically better in here because we don't want to get too aggroed, since this build isn't playing Rebirth in it. Then if we're going second in a matchup where they try to like push for damage super hard on turn 3, then we just need that extra defense sometimes in order to like make the following turns a bit easier. And then the 1 resource heal, this is searchable for the Ride Fixer as well. You could play a Conro in the deck, which can essentially turn into a 5th heal trigger that you can add into your hand. And then sometimes you could have soul issues in here if you're like overly abusing them. But for the most part, it's just because it's searchable off Ride Fixer. And then the grade 3 heal is searchable off Hishat and Lava Flow. So we just have a lot of like direct searching we can do for these, and a lot of Kagero's defense is linked to its G guards, so being able to help find multiple of these within a turn is really big. And that is it for the main deck. The primary thing about this deck is the main deck. You're very rarely striding, but we'll just quickly go through the Gzone. One, the Purge, it's a way to like go slow down the game a bit, where you can just like ping for 3 damage. If that 4 or higher, you can swing drive check a bunch off of it. Most of the time you won't be going into this. 1 Dungeed Valor. So Dungeed Valor can just sometimes auto win a game if you've been through enough Sentinels throughout a game. Since we're playing Sanctitude, then Dungeed Valor can at most have 3 Sentinels in drop, which is still like plus 45k is still really good. Yeah, and then it forces the opponent into like an awkward state where if they want to G-Guard or Perfect Guard one of your swings, they're going to have to do it at least twice because of Dungeed Valor. So Dungeed Valor could be a way to like guarantee damage if you don't have like a good setup for the X. If you don't have a good setup for VDX, then this could be a decent way to try to guarantee damage, other than against Protect decks because they get 2 fucking Protect markers now. And then Barricot. Sometimes you're just bricking. Barricot will just essentially kind of be like the Order, but minus all the Vanguard restands. And this will be 4 drive, 3 crit usually. And then you give your board plus 10k. This can be very niche. If you hit a Drag Veda on this, if you do end up playing Drag Veda, then this can be really good. But most of the time, you aren't even striding it. So this is mainly just another way to like help unbrick a lot of the time. Ascent Grave Dragon. So it has Blaze. and then you can combo one, flip up a G in it, and he gets the skill that whenever he is blazing and attacks, you retire an opponent's rearguard and draw a card. So this, again, is just another way to like slow down the pace of the game a little bit. You kill an opponent's rearguard, you draw an extra card, then you'll triple drive, and then you'll net an extra card compared to most other strides. One, Zanbust. You should basically never be going into this. This can be really good into decks or players that overcommit into this deck. So like if against like a Nova Grappler deck, if they're doing a like turn 3 one-shot build and you live, you just plop down Zanbust, blow up the board, and then they cry. So yeah, that's pretty good. But for the most part, that's like the only niche situation for it. And then 2 Ziegenberg, because it's a really good generic restander. So essentially it will be 3 drive, restand, 1 drive. This could be like a good alternative if you don't have a Legion, where you just stride into Ziegenberg, and then you play the order still. So then you swing for 28 2 crit, restand, front row gets plus 10, swing for 38 2 crit. So this is the stride you will probably be using the most in this deck. Dumjeed Valor can also restand and be able to use the order, but you kind of don't have control over that. It's really up to the opponent if they Perfect Guard or G-Guard doing it. Now, if they're at a like high damage count already, then it's a little bit more guaranteed, because at that point they'll be forced into doing it. But a lot of the time, if it's like in the middle of the game where like the opponent doesn't have much damage, then Ziegenberg is typically better in that regard. And then last stride is Harmonics. I just have it proxied because I'm too lazy to keep having to swap it around all my decks. The people I play with understand. So yeah, need Harmonics, Guardian Ticket, pretty good. Don't really care about the unlock effect. Against Link Joker, you really don't care about lock too much. This deck doesn't like it a little bit more than most other Overlord builds. Rebirth build just auto loses to Link Joker because of them just being able to unlock 1 card, and then Rebirth can't restand a 3rd time or a 2nd time. But the other like semi-important part about this card is the free damage you can get off of it, because in like a Gzone matchup where they try to just stall the game as much as possible, you could at some point stride into something, flip up Harmonics, and then they will damage deny you because that's all they fucking do, and then Harmonics is gonna be able to like give you that extra damage, give you an extra draw. But yeah, you mainly use it for the Guardian Ticket. Reveal $90, get 20 cents is what that does. And then yeah, so that is it for the strides. So we have 8 strides in here. A lot of cargo decks, like a lot of people that play Overlord try to put in more, but you're rarely striding in this deck anyway, because you want to be able to abuse your order as much as possible, and your strides don't really do that very well. So I personally just instead want to put in as many G-Guard options in the deck as possible, and we have 8. So the main one, Denial Griffin. Running 3 of them, you're able to recycle your heals through your Legion. So you're able to like potentially slow down the game pace as well through that turn if you just Legion back in a bunch of heal triggers. And then Denial Griffin, you can very easily use 3 of these in a game. Most of the time you'll only be using 2, but a lot of the time you can be using 3, and you kind of just need it to like help shut down really scary turns. Every fucking retire during opponent's turn effect is named after this card, and for a reason. It's literally just CB1 kill something, which is really good. It's essentially 3 more Perfect Guards in your deck, but instead of discarding, you counter blast for it. Next is the other G-Guard that only works with Overlord, which is 2 Defeat Flare. I am missing a second one, but a lot of the time people only play 1. I think you should play 2, because this can, 1, people don't expect it, so they like might commit somewhat of a board to where they force you to Defeat Flare, and then on the following turn they'll like fully commit on the back row, and then they like stop playing around it. This is like insanely important in the Neonectar matchup, because what it does, how Katrina usually plays, is they're going to be calling out a full field of tokens off of Katrina's skill, and then they have to do that on Vanguard swing. So then they get all of the new back row out, and they're usually going to be plant tokens that are giga boosted by Katrina and Cyclones. You G-Guard with Defeat Flare, blow up the back row, and then the turn is a lot less scary to be able to live through the rest of the turn. So this is pretty big in that matchup. If the Nova Grappler player is bad, it can affect them, because then you can kill Jarrowhawks, you can kill Meleakis. Most of the time you shouldn't be able to. And then just like in random control matchups, Defeat Flare is going to be able to like blow up back rows and just get you an insane amount of value. So like against Link Joker, they're going to be losing the Craving Claws off of this. Yeah, there's just like weird niche matchups that Defeat Flare can like really mess up the opponent for. And then we have 3 more G-Guards. One of them is Advanced Guard Dragon. So Advanced Guard is whenever you G-Guard with it, you need GB1 already, and then you flip up a G-Guard, Soul Blast 1, and then you retire one of your opponent's rested grade 1 or less rear guards. So this could be good into matchups like Grand Blue, where if they rest the Grenache, you could punish them for this. A lot of like our side G-Guards are really good into players that like don't know how to play against Kagero, which most people don't at the moment now because no one plays this clan, at least competitively. So Advanced Guard is going to be able to like, you can blow up Grenaches before the end of the turn, which is really big. You could potentially blow up like Urgula. This just comes up in very, very niche scenarios that whenever it does come up, it comes up really big on being able to just mess up opponents' board states a lot of the time. In another Grappler matchup, if they did not play Gunsdawn that turn, then you can G-Guard with this and blow up the Backo Jailhawk before it fully activates. They actually just lose a free drive check off of Busted and like an extra attack off of that, while this will be guarding another attack. Absalom, against decks that like remove the board in the process, you can G-Guard with Absalom on the Vanguard swing, and then it gets really massive shield. So this can be good in like a Grand Blue matchup where they're constantly killing the board as they are swinging. This can be good into like Gold Paladin, because Gold Paladin will be using Aglavale and tucking things into Soul, bouncing them back to hand, and they'll pretty often have a pretty empty board. Yeah, things like that. Just like other niche scenarios. Could be good into Dimension Police if they don't end up calling a board, because then this can just be a massive shield for their massive swing. Niche scenarios like that. And then the other one is Selima. Selima can be used on rearguard swings, and then you can Soul Blast, discard 4 cards, but it costs 1 less discard for each open rearguard the opponent has, and then it's a perfect guard. This will very rarely come up. A lot of the time, these 3 come up rarely. Defeat Flare comes up like some games, and then Denial Griffin comes up every game, other than against Nova Grappler. Oh, the other big thing about Defeat Flare is it puts Overlords back into your deck. So if you're like ripping all the grade 3s out of your deck, and then you don't have any more Overlords to like search off your Legion, if you just run out of Overlords in your deck that you need for your Legion turn, then you can Defeat Flare during the opponent's turn, put 2 of them back, and then you can Legion 4 triggers back in, and then still be able to fully combo off of that. You end up just like having a better chance of hitting triggers by doing it like that. A lot of how this deck plays is being able to compress as efficiently as possible. Okay, so for this combo, this is going to be our typical grade 3 combo. Usually our front row can be whatever. This is the most optimal, is having a combination of Ignorode or Burning Horns up here. And then we are on V the X. We do V the X's skill and then put at the end into Soul from our deck. So now the X will gain the effects of the end. And then we play the order from our hand. So now whenever our Vanguard restands for the first time, it will give 10k to our front row. The most optimal variant of this combo is to have a booster behind Vanguard. So then our first Vanguard swing is not weak. But for this example, we'll just show it at a baseline. So we will swing with Vanguard for 13-2 crit. Both our Ignorode and Burning Horn will gain plus 5k power. And then we will do the X's Twin Drive. If we hit a crit, this is really big. Typically, we just give it Vanguard, because now our Vanguard will hit over 3 damage triggers at this point. Second check, nothing. So then they either like roll-locked, they -2 critted us, they took the hit. Either way, they're taking a shit ton of damage from that. And then we will use the end skill to restand. And then he'll get plus 10k from the end skill. And then -1 drive. And then the order will proc, which will give 10k to our front row. We will swing with the X again for 43-3 crit. Both of these will get plus 5k power again. And then this will only be 1 drive. We'll say we went first. We will get 1 drive check out of the end to hand. And then at the end of the battle, we will Counterblast 1 and then Soul Blast 1. Typically, you'll Soul Blast the extra Overlord, because then that'll make it easier to consistently use Defeat Flare and be able to keep your Overlords in cycle that you can Legion back in and just search back out. We stand back up, and then we swing again for 43-3 crit 0 drives, and then both Ignorode and Burning Horn will get plus 5k power. And then after that, this will swing for 35, this will swing for 35. So that's the primary grade 3 turn that we're looking to do. A lot of the time, we might not like have that, and instead we have like a Ride Fixer up here, and we just swing like that. And then this will just end up becoming 20k. If we hit any extra triggers beyond the first one, then we can give power here, and it'll just be better. But how it could end up looking is you would swing on this and then restand once. Then swing with this for 20, swing with this, restand, swing, swing. You could play around Honolly, but not super necessary. This deck is only swinging 5 times a turn, 3 of which being Vanguard swing. This is our primary Legion turn. It's very similar to our V turn. So we performed Legion. I didn't compress the deck how much it should be, so we could hit a bunch of blanks more than usual. A lot of the time you would be hitting like 2 to 3 triggers off of these swings on like average most of the time. So yeah, so then we searched out a Legion from our deck from the X, and we also have the order in hand, so we'll play the order. And for this, we also need 2 CB. So this is like a weird scenario. Most of the time, you want to start with 3 cards in hand before we go in the battle phase. If you have a copy of the X in your hand, then you can go to 4, because the X will be able to discard another copy of itself in order to retire things, in order to retire rear guards, and then we can get to that 4 less condition pretty easily. So yeah, most of the time we just swing with Vanguard first. We will boost on this one because this is our weakest swing. So this is 11 plus the 13 from the Legion, so this will be 24, and then plus the AK boost, so 32 to crit from the Force 2. Both the Ignirodes will get plus 5k, and then we will triple drive, or not triple drive, twin drive. So first, second, no triggers. We'll say it didn't hit, so we're gonna be able to use the X's skill, discard the X, retire 2 things. Then we can do the end skill, discard 3, restand, and then he'll get plus 10k from the end skill, and then it will get plus 20k from the order because we have 2 Vanguards. So it adds plus 10k to both of them since it's to all front row units. So now this is up to 54k by itself. And then the other front row units will also get plus 10k power. And then yeah, we will swing for 54 to crit. Both of the Ignirodes will get plus 5k. We will twin drive. First heal. Power doesn't extremely matter. I would probably give it here, because now this will be swinging for 45, which is a really good number. And then second check, draw trigger. Let's pretend that's not the draw trigger. Crit. So then, just depending on scenario, a lot of the time you will be giving it to a rear guard because our Vanguard is already 2 crit and threatening more crit already. But if they're at like 2 damage, then it could be really good to give the crit to Vanguard, just so then you only need to hit 1 more to actually kill them. And then we will do the ends restand skill. Blast. Depending on your hand, you might want to keep the X in your soul, because in our regard specifically, we discarded the other Legion, so we're not going to be able to re-Legion. The only thing we could do is potentially rewrite the end of the VDX. But a lot of the time, you're going to be like discarding all your grade 3s out of your hand during this turn, so you want to keep the extra grade 3 in your soul, so then you can use one of Overlord's restands. So we'll soul blast the non-Overlord, and then we will swing again for 54 to crit, give 5k boost to both of these, and then yeah, twin drive again, lava flow, heal trigger. So this is currently 45. Oh wait, no, I gave it an extra trigger. So this is 55 to crit, and then this is currently 25, 35, 48. If they're at 4 damage, and yeah, if they're at 4 damage, then you'll give the power to the Ignorode with a crit to force them to guard more or have the perfect guard, because this will not kill no matter what. This is the only time this column makes a huge difference, is if you swing with this, they take it and they heal, and then you need the 1 damage. But any other time, the 1 extra damage isn't going to kill them. So yeah, we just give it to this Ignorode, and then if they're at 4, we swing with this. Yeah, if they're at 4 or higher, you just swing with this first no matter what. And then this will be 65 to crit, and then swing with this for 48. And then by the end of the turn, you have a 6-card hand. A lot of the time, if you Legion back in heals, you're going to find more heals. If you Legion back in crits, you're going to find more crits. Very situation dependent. A lot of like the skill ceiling of this deck is optimizing your deck thinning capability, and then also optimizing like what cards you put back into Legion. And there's not really a like skill ceiling of like attack orderings. Most of the time it's going to be 3 Vanguard swings, then your 2 rear guards. That is most of the guard attack sequencing of this deck. And then the other skill is knowing when you should defeat Flare and what you should denial Griffin in different matchups. And then just like fundamental stuff after that. And yeah, that's it for this deck. I'm really excited about this order. It actually makes these Overlord turns as threatening as they should be, because over time they just got a lot weaker. And most other clans after History Collection have pretty similar and mostly better grade 3 turns than Overlord did. And in order to like keep up with it, you had to sacrifice a bunch of deck building consistency on being able to high roll as hard as possible. But now with the order, you're able to play more cards that will like consistently help your game plan and be able to make your deck as consistent as possible. Play a bit more utility stuff, and then still have numbers on all of them in order to still hit like a truck. So I'm really excited about this order. I'm unsure how it's going to affect other Kagero builds or other Dragon Empire builds, but in Overlord specifically, specifically, this card's really good. And I think it's probably gonna be the way to go for a while, just so Overlord can keep up with pressure now. And yeah, thank you all for watching. Like, comment, subscribe, all that jazz. I'll see you guys in the next one.